Welcome to another episode of the Sacred Roots podcast. Today we're going to talk about something quite juicy because this weekend we actually buried Benji's placenta. And I've had a lot of reactions. Many of you actually messaged me on Instagram being like, oh, what is this practice? Tell us more about it. Why don't you record an episode? And so here I am sharing why we chose to do that, what was our experience with the placenta, and also some of like the traditions that actually do that and where this comes from. So if you're about to have a baby, you're probably very interested, or if you're into all sorts of ancient sacred practices, this might be very interesting for you as well, because the placenta is really a sacred organ. It is believed to be the first chakra of the baby. And here's why. Do you know actually how the placenta is formed? It's very fascinating actually when you start looking into this. So I'm going to share with you all the research that I did about it, because the placenta is actually formed at the same time as your baby. The way it works is that there's a sperm that is going to meet an egg, as you know, and then these eggs are going to create cells that are going to multiply, and they are going to multiply to 70, 100. And when they have reached that kind of level, then there is a differentiation that occurs. And those 100 cells divide in two groups. And one group of cells is going to become the placenta, and the other group of cells is going to become the baby. So the baby and the placenta, they are the same cells at the beginning. It's quite fascinating when you think about it, because it makes you realize how connected they are, and that the placenta is actually the baby's twin. It's the twin of the embryo that you have in your womb. And so after that, the placenta is going to attach itself to the side of the womb so that it can connect to the bloodstream of the mother, receive the oxygen, the nutrients, the minerals, the vitamins that it needs to then nourish the baby. So your baby is nourished in the womb thanks to the placenta. The placenta acts as a nurturer, a protector, a filter. Everything that the mother eats is filtered by the placenta, then goes through the umbilical cord and nourishes the baby. When you stop for a second and think about it, you start to see how important and beautiful this organ is. And of course, the baby feels connected to the mother when he or she is in the womb, but it definitely feels super connected to the placenta, because the placenta is that beautiful organ that it's laying next to. It's like a little cushion, it can sleep on it, but it nourishes, protects, filters, nurtures the baby during those 9 months. So it also helps for everything that is for the immunity of the baby in the womb. So it's like really a super important organ. And in our Western society, we don't really think about the placenta so much. You know, when the baby is born, we cut the cord, we throw away the placenta, and then that's it. But in ancient traditions, they actually understood the importance of the placenta, because for a lot of ancient traditions, the placenta was actually that first root chakra that was then sending energy to the sacral. So our energetical system, or chakras and meridians and all the energy structure that we have, is starting to develop in the womb. It doesn't happen after. It starts as soon as those first cells start to connect, because we are energy beings. We're pure energy. And so when you think about it, the placenta is connected to the baby through the navel. And the navel, it's called the dantian in China, the hara, but we mostly know it as the sacral, the Svadhisthana, the second chakra. And so it is going to nourish the baby through the second chakra, the seat of our power, the seat of our creativity, the energetical womb of the baby, which is your direct connection to source. If you've listened to some of my previous episodes or you've read my book, The Path of Femininity, you know how connected and how sacred the womb is for me, because the womb really is our direct portal to source. And so it is very interesting to see that the placenta that is in the womb of the mother is connecting the baby in its own womb, through its own womb. Isn't it crazy when you think about it? I mean, the womb is such a sacred place. And so if the umbilical cord is then connected to the womb of the baby, the second chakra, and then the placenta is the first chakra. It's the root chakra. It's what helps the baby be grounded. And that's why it's so precious to actually keep that organ after the baby is born, or at least wait and delay as much as you can, cutting the cord between the placenta and the baby. So why would you wait to cut the cord? There are different reasons. First, like the medical reason, for the blood. There's 1/3 of the blood of the baby that is in the placenta. When you cut the cord 30 seconds after the baby is born, all that blood doesn't have the time to reach the baby. And when you look at the cord, it's pulsating because the blood is really moving from the placenta to the baby. So there's a whole practice that is called the Lotus Birth that is actually inviting you to keep the cord for as long as possible on the baby, connected to the baby, and to actually let the cord dry out on its own and fall on its own. And that can happen in 4 to 7 days. It was my intention with Benji. We had bought everything to take care of the placenta, because you need to wrap it in paper, put some salt, because it's going to become smelly after a few hours, of course. And there's a whole sacred practice around that. We wanted to do it. And then you can also, if you want, actually burn the cord. But we actually left the cord on for 3 hours. Yeah, because Benji was born a little bit after midnight, and around 3:30 a.m., 4 a.m., I was like, okay, I'm really tired. This has been an amazing experience. This is our first baby. I gave birth at home. I think I've done my job here. Next baby, we can do the Lotus Birth and leave the placenta on the baby for longer. But after 3 hours, we decided to actually cut it. The umbilical cord was not pulsating anymore. It was completely white. But I'm actually really glad that we waited that long, because it is really believed that it gives all the blood that the baby needs. Of course, it gives all the oxygen. That's why it's really nice when you do a water birth. You can really take all the time you need to take the baby out of the water, because the baby is not breathing with his lungs, but still has all the oxygen it needs through the placenta. So we took Benji really, really slowly out of the water when he was born, and that was really beautiful, because it doesn't need to breathe straight away. It still has oxygen through the placenta. And so the placenta is sending blood to the baby, but it is also believed that because the placenta is the root chakra, it actually helps to transmit and share all of your soul's purpose. So if you leave the placenta with the cord connected to the baby longer, it gives more time for your soul to come into the body of the baby, the soul of the baby to come into the body of the baby. And it gives more time to the soul to actually transmit all the codes, all the activation, all the information, all the energetic information that the baby needs to remember why it came on earth. And when you think about it, it would make complete sense that so many of us don't remember or don't know or struggle to remember why we're here, what our purpose is, who we came here to be. And when you see the practice of cutting the cord 30 seconds after the baby is born, if leaving the cord longer helps to transmit that energy, to make sure that all the energy is in the body of the baby, it makes complete sense. I'm not saying there's like a link. I don't think it's possible to actually do a medical research on that. But when you think about it and you see how quickly the cords are being cut in hospitals and how much adults struggle to remember who they came here to be, it's just a very interesting link. Now, on an energetical perspective, on an energetical level as well, it is really believed that if you cut the cord too quickly, you can have what is called the umbilical shock. Some people who do energy healing, body work, craniosacral therapy have really reported that they can feel in the energy field of a person, an adult or a baby, that there has been an umbilical shock because the cord was cut too quickly. Because the baby felt disconnected from its protector, from its nurturing organ, from its connection to oxygen, blood, life, really. And its connection to its root chakra. It didn't have time to ground in the earth. So when the mother gives birth, her energy field is super, super, super expanded. And her root chakra is very, very expanded, much larger than what it would normally be. It's like really radiating much more to actually help the baby ground itself. So the energy field of the mother is helping the baby be grounded. And that's because the placenta being the root chakra, if you cut the connection to the root chakra, the baby needs the grounding, rooting energy of the mother to connect with the earth. It's beautiful, right? Nature is so perfect. Once you know all these things and you see how they just complete each other, like our bodies are so damn smart and wise. I'm always amazed when I think about these things. And I want to read to you a little text that I found when I did my research around the placenta, around the womb, around all these sacred practices. And there's a psychic that connected with her placenta in an energy healing session. And the placenta actually talked to her and gave her a very clear message. Now, consider this to be nonsense. Just take it if it resonates, throw it away if it doesn't resonate. But it's been really resonating with me. And so I wanted to read that text to you. The placenta is a guardian angel sent to attend, accompany, and protect the baby in the womb. The placenta is sentient and intelligent. It transmits tremendous energy, nourishment, medicine, love, and companionship. It is a companion. Baby is never alone. It is the great filter, protector, and channel, mitigating experience and material, as everything must pass through it before entering the baby. The placenta sacrifices itself for the baby to be born. It dies so that the baby may go on to live in the world. The presence and power of the placenta and the connection to it continues long after we are separated from it. Ancient wisdom traditions understand that the umbilical area of the belly is one of the most potent energetic gates of the body. It is the fire chakra, the center of the spiral current of energy. It's the seat of our life force. When you know about human design and you learn about the sacral chakra, you see how that area is really, it's the life force energy. And so this text is basically bringing together things that I have already shared with you, but I love that someone channel that message, and that it's just been resonating and confirming a lot of things that I research and that I have felt energetically as well. And so because you are connected to your placenta, even though you're disconnected from it physically, it's not because physically there's no connection anymore, that energetically you're not connected to it. We wanted to have a sacred ritual to honor the placenta, to thank it, and make it really something special around it after Benji's birth. And we always had in mind the idea of wanting to plant it, and we wanted to plant it under a tree. And so 2 weeks ago, Benji's godfather sent him a tree that he bought with a friend of him. It was a birthday gift that they did together to say welcome to Benji. It's funny because Benji loves trees, which is really cool. And so we thought, okay, perfect. We're going to use that tree and plant the placenta under it. And so we did that this weekend. I cleaned the placenta. So in the meantime, the placenta was frozen in our freezer. Some ancient traditions actually say it's really bad to do that because it can actually increase flus and colds for the baby, because the baby is connected to the placenta. And because the placenta is frozen, the baby can be sick more often and have more colds. I mean, Benji had one cold this whole year, so I don't know if that is something that we experienced, but it is interesting to observe that that is the belief that some people have. And so we froze it for a whole year. So we took it out of the freezer. I washed it. It was really beautiful to actually look at it again, because I don't know if you have ever looked at a placenta, but it is astonishingly beautiful. It is a tree. You see like all the veins and everything. Like, no wonder that certain ancient traditions think it's the tree of life, because it is so beautiful. I was amazed when I saw the placenta. We had a look at it when a few hours after Benji was born, when I was in bed, resting, eating French fries. The midwife showed us the placenta, and I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. I had so much, love and respect for that beautiful organ that is part of Benji. And so I cleaned the placenta with water. I took some incense, I took a candle. And so what we did is that Rich made a hole in front of our house. There's like a little patch of flowers and mint and stones. And so we wanted to put the tree there at the entrance of the house. And Rich made a hole there, and then I brought the placenta there, downstairs, because it's down the stairs that lead to our house. And I cleansed it energetically with incense that comes from India, that has been blessed by monks, because I wanted to cleanse it energetically from all it had experienced since it was born, also all the plastic that it was in, because it was in a plastic bag, of course, in the freezer. And then I turned on a candle to call in Benji's guardian angels, and so that they can support us in planting the placenta. And then we touched the placenta. Benji touched it too, to reconnect with it. And then we buried it. We put the tree over it. We put soil over it. And then during that whole process, we were singing a song that I felt called to create in that moment. So maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but I sing all the time and I create songs all the time. I write a lot of songs. And so quite often when I don't have a song to honor a moment, I'm sure there are a million songs that ancient traditions have, but I just haven't learned them so far. And so I create songs then. So I created a song to thank the placenta. And it was basically going like this: thank you, placenta, for your energy. Thank you for nourishing Benji. Thank you for your love. And we honor you with this ceremony. And so I just kept saying that as a mantra while we were planting the placenta, putting the tree on it, putting the soil on it. And then it was a beautiful earthing experience for us as well, because whenever you play with the earth, it's very grounding for you. So again, that placenta had a grounding role with us, because it all regrounded us by playing with the soil and planting it. So if you don't want to plant your placenta, some people actually eat it, because it's known to be a very powerful medicine resource that is very suited for the mother, because she just gave all her iron, all her energy, all her minerals to the placenta to feed the baby. And so it is believed that when you cook the placenta or put it in small capsules and eat it in the year after giving birth, the mother is then regaining health and regenerating her body. Personally, I didn't want to do that, because it felt more aligned for me to plant it. I feel that it's Benji's root chakra, Benji's placenta, and I wanted to plant it in the house where he was born, because who knows how long we're going to stay in Squamish. We want to travel the world. We have lots of places where we want to live. We definitely want to stay in Squamish for some time, for the next years. But I think it's really cool that when he's going to be an adult, if he doesn't live there anymore, he can always go back to that place, and it's going to be history with his placenta that's in the ground. Yeah, I just love that idea. I think it's really cool. And so there are a lot of different traditions, a lot of different sacred practices that you can do with the placenta. And there's an anthropologist, Daniel Benishek, that actually did a lot of research about what different traditions actually do with the placenta. And so he went to 179 different communities, and he found about 100 different practices. So it's really cool to see that every community, every tradition, every country or corner of the world has created its own tradition, its own sacred practice with the placenta. And so some people bury it, some people incinerate it, some people place it in different locations. I saw some people hanging it in trees, some people eat it. So it's actually really cool to see that there are so many different traditions. And so we made it our own tradition by cleansing it with the water, then cleansing it with the incense, turning on a candle, and then singing gratitude and loving and really a thank you mantra to the placenta. And of course, Benji couldn't care less. He didn't really understand what was happening. He was just splashing with the water and the blood everywhere. So yeah, that was maybe not as sacred as I wished it could have been, but it's also part of life. You know, kids are spontaneous and they don't always measure the sacredness of things when they're 11 months old. But that's okay. And so to finish this episode, I wanted to share with you some beliefs that are around the placenta and why some people have such a sacred practice with the placenta and don't just throw it away. So ancient Egyptians, as well as other cultures, actually believe that the placenta is the child's secret helper and guardian angel. So this is very similar to the text that I read to you and what I was explaining before, and which is why they're, of course, keeping the placenta or burying it somewhere with a sacred ceremony. In Cambodia, the placenta is considered to be the origin of the baby's soul, and therefore the burial place is surrounded with spike plants to protect the baby from evil spirits, which is pretty cool. I love that idea. And the Hmong people of South Asia believe that there's really a spiritual connection between the placenta and the baby. And so it's very important for them to actually bury the placenta at home, like we did. Because when the Hmong people die, they believe that their soul actually goes back to the birthplace, so where the baby was born, so at home, and that it reunites with the placenta, which then helps the deceased to travel back to the spirit world and join its ancestors. So I love this idea, because when you know that the placenta and the baby were just the same cell at the beginning, and then they multiplied, and then they divided into two groups, and one became the placenta and one became the baby, I love the idea of actually reuniting with the placenta to go back to the spirit world, where the baby actually came from in the first place, where we all came from in the first place. So that's what we did. Maybe I have some past lives as a Hmong woman in South Asia. Who knows? But I really love the idea of burying the placenta in the home where the baby was born. And I know other friends who did it, and they buried the placenta of their baby under a rose bush or under a tree. A lot of people actually do that because it is so symbolic, and because the placenta is really considered to be the tree of life. And so it's beautiful to actually plant it under the tree and to be able to give back all these nutrients to Mother Earth, because we all come from Mother Earth. We are Earth. We're part of her. And so I think it's really beautiful to give back to Mother Earth, because we take so much from her, so much of her food, of her water, of her energy. So I think it's very sacred to honor her and thank her and give our placentas back to her. So yeah, so this was our experience while we buried Benji's placenta in front of our house under a beautiful maple tree that he received from his godfather and a friend of Rich and the godfather. So it's always going to be a special place for us, and I'm really happy we did it. So if this is resonating with you, of course, you can make your own ceremony and do that as well. And, there's no right or wrong. If you think this is crazy, then you probably haven't listened to the end of this episode anyway. But I think it's very important to bring these sacred practices back into our life to help us remember how magical life is, how magical the earth is, and stopping for a moment in our lives that are always so busy and so quick and everything goes so fast, and taking the moment to really honor what just happened, the birth of a baby, the first year of a baby, and the fact that a baby has been nourished and protected through the placenta. So that was important to me, because this is how I live. I bring the sacred into most things that I do, probably everything. So this is why we did it. So let me know if this resonated with you, if you're also going to bury your placenta, or if you're going to keep it, or at least leave the cord as long as possible on your baby. In hospitals, they're now more and more open to doing that. If you want to leave it at least for 2-3 hours, it is going to benefit your baby so much. So many people tell me, wow, your baby has such a present and grounded energy, like he's so much there. And I think it's definitely due to his personality, but I am convinced as well that it is thanks to the fact that we left the umbilical cord so long on him. We could have done longer for sure, but 3 hours is already amazing. So thank you for listening to me. Thank you for being a follower of the Sacred Roots podcast. You can always leave a review. Now you can leave reviews on Spotify or on Apple Podcast. And if you want to experience an amazing quality time with me, well, there is my retreat that is going on in June from 23rd until the 26th of June. We are not going to bury placentas during that retreat, no. But we are going to have sacred ceremonies. We're going to do a Newman ceremony. It's going to be a beautiful, intimate, spiritual 4-day experience to really help you come back to your intuition so that you can make these decisions for yourself. Is it right for me to bury a placenta? Is it right for me to leave the cord on? We read so much information on the internet. We are the age of information. And sometimes just coming back to your intuition to make those decisions is actually the best. So I'm going to empower you during that retreat to really reconnect with your intuition, learn to trust it, learn to listen to it, learn to surrender to it so that you can have a solid life, a solid business that leads to abundance, ease, and flow. So if you're interested, we still have a few spots left. You can always click the link that is in the show notes of this episode if you want to have all the details about this amazing retreat that I am so excited to be hosting. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I will be seeing you in next week's episode.